the girls. A lot of people, I think, are going to be online. Hello to all. Welcome. A big thank you to Onassis Stegi and StegiRadio for the invitation. I am Fofi Tsesmeli. I am a music editor, a DJ, and a creator, if I say. I am the co-director of She Said So Athens and the founder of her project. And it is both an honor and a personal milestone for me to introduce someone who has been a true role model, not just professionally, but also personally, in the way that she inhabits and transforms the cultural world with vision, generosity, and courage. Giorgia Taglietti is a cultural strategist, consultant, and connector of people and ideas. As the founder of the International Consulting Network for Arts and Culture, ICNAC. I love it.
Absolutely.
She works across disciplines and geographies to create more equitable, resilient, and forward-thinking cultural landscapes. Her leadership is grounded in care, ethics, and a deep understanding of how culture moves through people, places, and imagination. She serves on the boards of the Association for Electronic Music, and She Said So. She mentors the next generation of cultural workers, especially femininities, with sincerity, honesty, and an unshakable belief in collective growth. Her work has helped me personally to understand that cultural change is not possible but necessary, and that it begins with how we choose to show up, to listen, and create together. Giorgia is a thinker. She's a builder and an agitator for structural change. So as we have gathered here, under the powerful framework of Plasmata, an exhibition that explores networks, embodiment, and the futures we shape, and in collaboration with the important StegiRadio, we are privileged to hear from someone whose practice embodies these very principles. Giorgia, welcome. Was it long?
No, but I want to use this bio for my website if you let me.
Okay.
I'll be like, oh my God, I'm like, this will work for getting more work my way.
Okay,
Thank you so much, by the way, Onassis Stegi, Makis, and you to be here and to be in Athens for my first time.
It was about time, I think.
It was about time.
I want to ask you with something, I don't know if it's easy or if it's difficult. You have a very long career of 30 plus years. So which were the three moments that actually shaped what you wanted to do and the creation of ICNAC?
One moment that shaped me was when I was studying, because I had mentors in my life, and actually very surprising men, professors, teachers in Italy, that kind of guide my my thirst for culture and reading, philosophy, art. I think it's very important in education to have people that understand you. So I think I had that, and you can tell because I was a pretty difficult teenager, like most of us. But I think that I found the right teachers. So I had some people be just in front of me that nurtured me behind the class, outside the class, and took my under my wing. Maybe they thought I was special. Maybe they thought I was listening. But that was really something that stayed in my heart, especially a professor of philosophy of mine that was a man that really kind of led me into philosophy and led me to things that I never devoted myself after. But I think 5 years of history of art and 5 years of philosophy can mean, even if you're young, before 18, shape the word that you want to be, especially in classical studies. The second step has been to say, I come from a musical family that really love jazz, and I kind of always thought I will never work in something that I really love, like culture, because I think that then when you work in it, you hated it. So I was like working in design and doing more things. I did advertising, which I never practiced, by the way. And I never really understand the commercialization of ideas. And then I had a very big thing that happened in my life. I was a big writer when I was a young lady. And then I speak so many languages that I can't write properly in any. When it happens to anybody that speaks many, many languages, we have problems in copywriting the right way we want, in a very proofreading way, in the language that we think is the best one. So renouncing my writing, renouncing my copywriting and my creativity in this became the fact that I started designing the catalog for a festival called Sonar. I started with them. They kind of see, oh, you speak a lot of languages, you can be useful. And I say, I don't want to work in music. I don't know anything about electronic music. I love jazz, and this is horrible. And they kind of say, you are born for it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they recognize my virtues. And again, I think there are kind of, as I said when I left, and it was the 30th edition back in 2021, I said to them, you recognize something that I could recognize in myself, as the teachers were saying to me. And the third part was has been She Said So and Andrea, because when I met Andrea, I was already kind of beyond the music industry, all kind of work surrounded by men. And I love men, by the way. You are amazing, but it was very, very much strange minority with non-diverse, and I found a community with She Said So, and I started mentoring. I started a lot of stuff thanks to She Said So back in the days. We are now beyond 10 years, but it was literally the first year, and I started enrolling the She Said So Barcelona, and it kind of built a community of women. I come from Italy, where in my age, I was born 65, women were not supposed to be friends with women. I
Yes.
was reminding myself of, with Makis actually earlier, of a movie from Antonioni called Le Amiche, which is the opposite of Friends. The movie is about hates and rabbis and hating you, and everything that was made for us to be competitive between each other. And this was a culture then. And I think, well, there is still a culture like that, but I think it's very important the change that this has been coming in before the Me Too and in the last 15 years.
Isn't this a culture that we are like built to believe in, though, because we are that few, especially in the past years. You have to compete. I mean, there is no way that you can, walk together or create together. Would you say that?
No, I think it's when you are fewer, you try to compete because there's less people in the same field. And actually, one of the things that is becoming to be it's hurting my heart is post-COVID, the music industry has suffered of shorten of jobs, of shorten, not only the music industry, but we are here to talk about even art, let's say. And when you don't have a space to move on, when you don't have abundance of offer,
Yeah, yes.
then you need to compete, and you compete with anybody, especially when you're young and you need to make money. And I need to talk about money because if you're in the music industry, you need to make the music industry sustainable for you. So I'm not here for a hobby. I'm here to make money, sustain my family, myself. So you need to think about the balance of both.
Yes. So, do you see ICNAC as a way to reprogram how cultural value is produced and distributed across borders? Would you say that?
See, because when I built it, is because I know a lot of people, and the name network is because I'm always networking with somebody, whatever I am, and also because of my job and what I have been. I mean, let's go back to funny stories. I was a networker when I was 6. So my mom used to sit me in a bar and say, what have you listened to gossip about everyone, please? Mm-hmm. So you tell us. So I was already listening. And this knowledge and curiosity kind of has been the motor, the engine of my life. And what I like the most about the curiosity that I feel is that all human beings are interesting for me. Everything is interesting for me. And if I find something that is boring, it's because literally it's done without the heart, without the love. But, I can love anything that is done with love and with the heart, and especially in culture.
Yes.
But, I'm a kind of IT. I love machines, so I love the computer. And my husband sometimes is like, the computer doesn't work. And you're like, no, it doesn't work because you don't put love in it. You need to understand machines as much as you understand your life. And he hates me because of that, because normally the computer works and he doesn't think he has a soul. So I think the whole thing is about understanding how things work, how human works, and how culture works.
Though, what does decentralization in cultural consultancy mean in practice? Okay, let's talk about practice. And how can it resist the reproduction of existing hierarchies? Is it possible?
It is possible, but the most important thing is ambition.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not an ambitious person right now. I want to make my company sustain. That's it. Is there something weird about it? I don't think so. Is there something that I want to make more money about it? No. Sustainability in this case for me right now, the age I am, where I am, and the choice I've taken, it's more about, I want to sustain the next generation. So in order to sustain the next generation, I need to challenge myself in getting less money for me, more money for them, or something that kind of balances itself, that makes them invest in their future. I don't need to invest in my future. It's fine. I'm already investing in my future. But I think that you need to create a will that makes them be able to invest in their future. And I teach, as you know, and I teach a lot, actually, more and more again, in between 20 and 30 masters and creativity, art, and etc. And it's very interesting because as I think creativity is not linked to money, but money is linked to creativity. So it's like there's no capital in the world that can make anything existing in culture without a creative mind.
Yes.
That you can't pay off.
This happens a lot in electronic music. So I wanted to ask you, to what extent do you think electronic music is still shaped by a Eurocentric or, let's say, global North aesthetics? And how can we actively create platforms and epistemologies or sonic languages from the margins?
I don't agree in an overall view of electronic music as one, first of all. Second of all, I think and I believe in the existing of communities that are thriving thanks to the social media that everybody wants to put down. There's one word from this amazing friend of mine that is a Substacker, which I call it because I love Substack, which says social media are not social media anymore because 80% of the people are scrolling, 20% of the people are creating, which makes that the social media of today that everybody's crapping down and say whatever, I agree with certain kind of education on social media, but we will dig deeper into that if you want. But social media, they're not social media, they're media. They're the new television. I remember my mom said, you're stuck to television 8 hours, you can't be like that. Your brain will be brainwashed. But I was 8, and we are in 2025. Yeah. So I think that we need to kind of overcome this sense of media. So accept social media as a media that is very biased, beware, but non-parents or no educators have ever educated anybody to have a digital education. That's you don't go to school and say, this is bad, this is good, this should be, this no. Nobody has ever taught the people I know about settings, about the fact that Instagram is not chronological. Some people don't even know, which is tragic by now. So there is a sense of ignorance that creates bad news, fake news, scrolling, and everything that is made not only by Zuckerberg, which, of course, it's a controlling mind because they are where they are, Silicon Valley forever, but there is also the way we, for instance, we as Europeans, with the ancient culture that we have and the criteria that we build. Look, we are in Greece. I mean, babe, we are talking Italian to Greek. This is where culture for me was born. And it's even nobody can dispute that. So it's like big philosophers were born from here. So we represent a culture that has to have a criteria saying we are thinking about it, we are facing about it, we know what we should teach our children to decide what to do, because they're not going to leave social media. They're going to be on social media, but they're to be conscious about what is social media.
Yeah. Social media created fast cycles. that dominate both digital content and the cultural productions.
It is.
How do you advocate for slowness, care, and depth in a field increasingly pressured by metrics, immediacy, and visibility?
By listening and reading a lot, but not reading like assimilating. I think that if you read reading a newspaper, you read 20 or 5. If you read something on the socials, you need to follow the thread. I mean, the thing is, we never click beyond that.
Yes.
So the click beyond that is what I like. The click beyond that is like, is this real? Is it not real? In a way, I know that people are lazy and the memory is fast tracking.
Of course.
But I also think that this is kind of somehow helpful with the amount of information that we get every day. So, the brain, our brain, is programmed to absorb a certain quantity of information. So this memory has a memory that needs to retain certain things and not others. What it really means for me, and I'm sorry to say parents or educators or teachers, it goes back to teach how to read, teach how to see these things. My teacher back then was like, no, you can't read a Reader's Digest of, whatever, Hannah Karenina. You need to read the full book. And then you were there reading the full book. But then you appreciate that by the time. Of course, you were bored. But I was also bored back then. I read books that were like Don Quixote. And you're like, wow, no, please don't do that to me. But then you do it. And then you appreciate it later on. So I think culture needs time, but also right now, how it is structured is digital, is offering too much food for thought, and we also decide what to filter.
Yes. Also, we live in a time of ecological collapse, political extremism, and post-truth fragmentation that is created through social media, no? And the cultural field, particularly, electronic music included, offer a new language for healing protest or reimagining futures. Do you believe that?
See. And I do believe, the other day I was in a conference and somebody said, there is not one truth, there is just the perspectives. I don't know how you feel about that. It could be used as a negative thing, it could be used as a positive thing.
Yes, of course.
Perspective needs that really, we can't say we are in possession of a truth. So that I love. And the fact that, but I also want to create an enrichment of this sentence, say the perspective needs to be creative with consciousness, with coherence, with criteria, with selection.
Who sets this criteria?
Benji B, the other day in IMS, I was in Ibiza and I was like, oh, there is not one truth, there are just perspective. And I was like, well, I pencil it down, which rarely happens because I'm a memory on iPad. But it's like, I really believe right now, the perspective of communities is so important, the perspective. So why do we think that everybody has the truth? This creates conflict. The fact that my truth is my truth, you don't have the truth. My perspective is my perspective, you have the perspective. Then there is reality, but it's not the truth, it's reality, which is a different story.
On that note, can grassroots hubs genuinely collaborate with institutions without being co-opted? What do you think?
Sorry. Well, it's important to laugh because everybody in the institutions can't deny that the loss of power of help and support from the institutions, especially public institutions, has actually created this kind of situation. So don't blame the blamers, but blame also the situation of economical structure. Mm-hmm. Our economical macro system is one of the things that makes me worry the most, because it's actually affecting how we live ecologically, how we think culturally, how we act in many ways, and how we verticalize again. It looks like the 90s. I was a big reader of Bret Easton Ellis, American Psycho, and all these things. And that was the culture of verticality. That was the culture of power, white man, blah, blah, blah. But I loved him because he was very psychoed in that. So I think we're kind of growing back to that. I see American Psycho, and I'm sorry, but I see Elon Musk, and I don't see the difference.
Yeah,
it's like I see a parallel in between this. And actually, there was an interview not long ago about Bret Easton Ellis and the current trends. And I think Umberto Eco, a fantastic man that we had, like the most important Renaissance man we had in Italy, created amazing books. Of course, The Name of the Rose is one of the biggest one, but he created many, many things about semiotics. He had this book about apocalyptics and integrated. And I love the idea of thinking back about apocalypsis, about the way that we are aiming into something so strong, so hardcore. Some of us, maybe we don't sleep by night thinking about where is this going, questioning yourself how to channel your life, even culturally. And then you go back to your life and you think, okay, what can I do? The neighborhood, the local, the person, this garden, this park, this is change.
Yes, but how can these relationships between institutions and grassroots communities can remain radical, autonomous, and generate rather than extract?
Selling that the creativity can't be paid, and the only way to go forwards is that grassroots is where creativity is born. Grassroots is where creativity is free. Freedom of thought is actually the question. I think it's unquestionable that we all follow different threads, because I read a lot of newspapers, and then I read my Instagram. Don't scroll my Instagram. It's a difference in between reading your Instagram and scroll your Instagram.
They say that you have to write more so that you remain in the algorithm, right? We're giving tips.
Keywords
Okay.
is the new tip. But the real thing about that is that if you read my Instagram, it's about my communities, my people, it's about transgender, it's about rights, it's about diversity, it's about everything that I believe on. So this is my reality on a social media, which is my media. And if I go to El País, the New York Times, I need to filter the news that really are important to me. So I have a Flipboard that I use. I actually like the guys at Flipboard, and it's an aggregator for news. And there, more or less, I tune in the news I want to read. And I save the news I want to read about health, about women, about diversity, about art, about culture, about music. And literally the algorithm at the end, because the algorithm at the end is a machine, is not a beast or something, respects the choices in some way of what I do. And then I see my culture. So it's not impossible to create your culture. The only thing is just not getting pressed by the overall impression that it's just one culture, because it's not true.
You have spoken before about the richness of cultural ecosystems in peripheral zones. How can we invert the flow of cultural capital so that the center becomes a listener rather than the broadcaster?
I had this crazy idea. You will love that.
Yeah.
I have this crazy idea in the school that I teach, and it's like, what will happen to petrol stations when everything is electric? Okay, so having worked with promoters all my life, in a sudden you think, okay, we are going electric, so no more petrol station. Petrol stations is the greatest venue that we can imagine, because the bars are there, the security are there, the things are there, the parking are there, there's no neighborhoods, there's no noise. But the most interesting thing about the petrol station is that outside, most of them, they're outside the city. So decentralized. So I make all my students made an exercise about an exercise of a big artist that wants to be sustainable, that wants to tour by bus, that wants to stop by and do impromptu kind of live shows in petrol stations that are unused.
Okay.
Okay. What the only stop that is there, because I am a professional in that, is that first of all, we don't know who owns the petrol stations. Hello. But it's true that to decentralize culture, you need venues. You can't just say, oh, I'm going this and I created this amazing residency of artists in the middle of nothing and everybody will come. But in the moment you make it accessible, because accessibility is also a big thing that for me is very important right now for culture and grassroots venues. It's like, if you are grassroots independent and you believe in the principles of diversity and inclusion, you also need to be adaptable for people that are neurodiverse or disabled and stuff, which makes more expensive the idea, but it's more inclusive the idea. So your goals should be focused that way. And for instance, like a stupid idea like a petrol station is completely feasible because it's accessible all the way, and it can be a great stage for an impromptu artist for a sustainable tour. You know, creativity gives you
How
some
do you
help.
get the word out, though? How do you fund it?
Social media.
Okay. Only that?
Maybe something else, but you can do it on DICE.
You have worked on equity and on multiple levels, advisory, curational, and of course institutional. You just mentioned it. How do we move from representation to structural transformation in the music and the art industries, especially regarding gender and intersectionality, because we tend to forget intersectionality and it's very important.
Well, I will question the word transformation. What do you mean by that?
I'm sorry?
When you say structural transformation, what do you mean by transformation?
Transformation means let's get to the point that we actually have what
Get
we're
it.
Yes.
Get it. So we're not really transforming. We just go in there and
Yes.
make it happen as a different way. Because transforming meaning, I think there are places in culture where we're safe and where we are, and everybody is kind of thriving. If not all the things that we've seen in the latest years, we will never be happening in our world. I just think that structural depends on how we all believe in it. Mm-hmm. So this is a question of public opinion. Okay. So that's why we keep thriving, we keep messaging, we keep sending things, we keep shouting out. And I said something like right after COVID, saying 2021, 2022 was a regression. Instead of transformation, let's say that we are going back to challenging the status quo and getting back to normal, let's say normal, where we can progressively reach an equality status of art and culture. Not easy to say.
Yes.
More common than you think within communities. So if you put all the communities that we know, you know, I know, everybody knows together, at one point you will see that it's stronger than we think.
Many voices are stronger.
We are stronger than we think. One thing that I would say, we just too fragmented. And this is not going well. Is not going well.
I mean, how can we solve that?
Creating a movement. I am a person that is struggling to kind of say, shall we do something? Okay, create a movement. I can't, create a movement. We are not in the pre-feminist era of 4 women leading the conversation, blah, blah, blah. We are in a moment in which people should link into a common goal, which is, the best experience. Actually, I forgot. The best experience in my life that I would never thought I would experience is the Women's March. Nothing will compare in my life to the Women's March feeling. And we show the world we can do it. We need to create a kind of, it's not only about women, let's say, and we need to create a momentum. But as I say always, you can't force the zeitgeist. Mm-hmm. Zeitgeist comes, as you journalist, you know. Zeitgeist comes and you feel it and you embrace it and you say, now is the time.
But the problem that we usually face, this is a personal experience, is we always come to a point, who is more feminist than the other? Who cancels faster than the other? So within the movement, even if it is created, you see that, you still have to understand that we go away from the main goal. Do you feel like that?
I actually feel that we overcome a bit of that, and we are going more humble in the radicalization of who is more than the other. Because I think all people that are clever and see there's no point in this, will definitely reach the point in which we commune.
That's why I mentioned intersectionality, because I mean, what you're experiencing abroad is not the same in Greece. So we're trying to find our way in this situation.
No. It's not the same. I think that globally we are experiencing the same things, but then in the collectives, I think we are the same. If I introduce you to the collectives in Barcelona, they will tell you exactly the same that you say. But then what I think from my age, my perspective and everything is that all these collective can easily get together. So that will be much bigger, much stronger. And it's not only about exactly feminism, it's about intersectionality. I'm really, there's so many discussions about race, so many discussions about class. It's like who can reach the point in which to go a concert, to reach music, to do everything that you should do, how much you pay for a streaming service, how much you can. There is a big question here. In the New York Times, there was a great article. It's like, there are people that read the news with a firewall, and there are people that read the news everywhere else. Do you know what news people read everywhere else without a firewall? It's huge and it's scary. So this is the people that we need to take care of. This is the people that need to get access of all the type of culture that the firewalls are creating because of the sustainability of the few.
And also, of course, intersectionality doesn't have to do with the characteristics that you are born. It has to do with the characteristics that the society gives you when you grow up.
You're shaped.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And how you shaped makes you shape. But please remember, the injustice of culture is an expensive thing, but at the same time, culture is inside us. It's a transmission of cultural values. It's free. So when is the moment that this culture became so monetized, and how we can do more to become free on that? This is important for all of us to kind of express ourselves in many ways. I mean, you can sing to me, and I'll be happy to hear. And if you sing wonderfully, that will be a free concert for me. Thank you.
So, in a world, you just took me to my next question. In a world where the means and the time to create art are increasingly tied to socioeconomic privilege, and I believe that firmly, how do we ensure that cultural production remains a space of access, plurality, and lived urgency, rather than one dominated by the privileged few with institutional backing or financial security?
It's too simple. I think that creativity, especially if you're talking in what we love, which is music and even art, I think that all the people, tiny people meaning little artists that I know that I love, and everybody that I love, when they come to me and say, okay, how do I monetize a bit more, the richness of it is to be able to access all the flavors that you can reach. You see a lot of, let's say, domination, but I don't see the word. I see the word as this, but it's not part of my word. For instance, my playlists, they're not full of, pop superstars, and my everything that I ingest culturally not necessarily is led by this. So I think there are people like me, a lot of people like me actually, and the important thing right now for me is to enhance the young people to become curators and programmers, because most of them, they want to become artists, communication, or production, but none of them, I always say, I want to be a curator or a programmer. This is the most important thing. I mean, you need to risk your ass. I'm sorry to say, I can't say it's us in Stegi maybe, but it's like you need to risk everything and be a curator to create the music and the environment you want. You need to say, I want this friend of mine, he sells 50 tickets, I will sell 100. I will become this, I am adding this to my community. This for me is success.
Using your privilege.
This is success. This is success. Charisma, you can pay charisma. It's like, oh, I'm a charismatic person because I'm rich. No. You're charismatic because you're charismatic. Because you have a factor that can lead people to you. There are rich people that are charismatic. That's what makes them millionaire. But there are cultural people that are charismatic because they know that people follow their taste, follow their lead. They anticipate trends. They say, you should listen to that. And then you go and you're like, wow, you're right. And I know, I've been so lucky to meet many of them. And not many of them in the young generation because they're scared of, I'm not making money, it's not sustainable. I mean, it's never been sustainable before. It's not that
true.
before was incredible, like, oh, we started, we were millionaires.
That's true.
So it's
But
like,
it's the
this
saturation, I think.
it's also clickbait. It's like, okay, let's work it from here in this park and let's do a party. I know you can do a party. I actually have, shout out to Hannah here that is listening, but she does parties in this thing in Villanova. He has found a bar. She reminds me so much of the earliest stage of, I'm doing a party. They said we can do a party. It's really hard now to do a party. Of course it is. It's gentrification forever. But she has found it.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of people I want to be around.
What are the ethical responsibilities, though, of a cultural consultant today or a curator, particularly when working across borders, funding systems, or with the communities who may be vulnerable to cultural extraction?
Respect the culture. The fact that I speak a lot of languages helps. The way to speak a language is respect to the other language, so I get to kind of being really in contact with, France and Italy and Spain. I understand Portuguese, England. And, the moment I cross a border, I try to speak the language. Shout out to people that, want to learn languages. I think it's very important because culturally, when you're a cultural consultant, you get to know the nuances of how people are going things that way, or they're talking things that way, how they are elevated by education. They are, you need to read people. So actually, my work, which for an hypersensitive person like me, it's been a conquest, is to read people, and to read people in their languages, which makes that you embrace the culture from the scratch. Like I said, I can't write properly in any language, which is terrible for me. It makes me cry. But it's because I want to speak to people and I want to embrace their culture. I can read their papers and I know. Because one thing I always said to my pupils is, do you know that none of us listening to the same music in any country? You go to the best listening records in France and they have nothing to do with the best records in Greece. And they have nothing to do with the best records in Italy. They have nothing to do with best records in Spain. And nobody seems to care. They all think that that Taylor Swift is the queen. Respect to her, but if you go to the single things that people listen in every country, you don't know anything about what is a French person of your age listening currently.
Yeah. Where does meritocracy go into this equation?
Not much now. It used to be, but right now meritocracy is lost. One thing that is really good is to create education in music and in the industry. So I teach in International Music Business School. Now you know how to get there. You don't need to be a friend of a friend. Have the right contacts.
But aren't we losing talent, you think, because of that?
What do you mean?
Because some people don't find a way to express their art. Some people maybe, be at the right place at the right time. Or have the good connections, let's say, the good network.
Let's say that sometimes I say to people that we need, the artists especially, I say to artists, I'm sorry, in the contemporary world, shyness doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Hiding doesn't work. Against system, like I don't want nobody to know me, I can't help you. Okay. Because you need, I never wanted to be an artist. I think being an artist is very, very brave. I can't imagine, I don't know you, but I can't imagine myself to be on stage and say, now I sing for 10,000 people. I would be like super scared. I can talk to people, but I can't sing to 10,000 people and changing my clothes and running around. And I think it's so fantastic that they can do that. But they need to face the public facing of it, which means a lot of strength, a lot of muscle, a lot of, okay, you can't be shy. You can be shy at home, but you need to face your audience.
Okay. My last question.
Ah,
I know. I got you going, and now.
sorry.
If we were to imagine a post industry model for music, beyond labels, agencies, festivals, whatever, what forms of cultural life might emerge, do you think?
I don't necessarily think we need to rethink something completely different. Actually, I was thinking earlier on, we are so incredible as human beings, and we are kind of underplaying ourselves. You know, it's AI will submit us all, or technologies, slavery, and actually everything that you see around it, especially culture, is done by us. So people say, "Oh, soon we can read what dog says," and I say, "Okay, I'm fine, great. I will finally find what somebody's dog think of me." But culture is part of us, and it's one of the greatest richness that we gave to humanity. So I don't think anything will destroy this. Anything. It's part of the human being. It's like the way we move towards it is the willingness to express ourselves. And expression, nobody can repress expression. And that's why AI or anything that can happen, that should be regulated for different reason, which is propriety and ownership and creativity and many other things. But humanity and culture are so intrinsic together that if you go beyond that and think we need another system, you won't find one. You know, I think that actually one of the things that I always think is like I am dressing more or less like somebody like 20, 30 years ago. We never got into the big fashion future. We never, there was a T-shirt
In
that was
fabrics,
done.
though, we got a bit.
Yeah, but then again, we know what we know, and then we have the T-shirt say, "I never got, you know, everything I saw on Star Trek and Star Wars, I never got to see that."
Did we fail as humanity, you think?
No, I mean, I felt my imagination, but you know, teletransportation, we love to think about that. Anything that is fantastic for us to be, even telepathically. The other day was a student of mine was explaining to me that there is these studies about autism and telepathy, and I found it absolutely fascinating. I love to study everything that is neurodiverse. And there's so many senses we haven't studied yet. So what I see in the future of culture is more ways to experience culture with 5, 6, 7 senses, maybe senses we don't know we have,
Okay.
which I'm definitely thinking that we know.
So here, you created it right now.
Yeah,
You
but
tell
it's
me
like,
no,
you
and
know,
then you tell
I'm
me
following,
no.
you know, I'm supporting these guys that have this startup that actually is very successful right now. It's called Cinegram, and is teaching music through the way that synesthetic experience music. Synesthesia exists.
Of course it
So it's
exists.
like, and exist the way they experience. If they exist, they show us that human can experience senses in many ways, and culture is a senses experience, is a sensorial experience.
Of course.
It comes from hearing, it comes from sensing, it comes from body, it comes from be close. So you can do whatever you want, but the sense of community and the sense of culture can be beaten by any sense of structure that can be reproduced. And I actually support the fact that beyond all the systems and beyond all the discussions about or the titles, what it really cares is the experience that you have with others.
Amazing. Thank you. What is the future beholding for Georgia and for ICNAC? And
Pues-
where do they?
Connect.
Yes.
Well, it's me. Ignac is something that is built around people. Actually, I was explaining Ignac is more like a firm. It's not a company. I have my clients, and then I have the opportunity to have some people taking care of other things that I don't do. And you know, my important thing, and I thank back to Andrea Magdalena here, and I have like a little tear in my ears. But it's like I want to be remembered for something that is called coherence in my career.
This is, for me, you are.
Thank
So
you.
I don't know if it helps, but maybe Andrea can also confirm.
Maybe, but we don't. I mean, I just want to thank her, and I want to thank you for this amazing interview
Thank
and
you
the
very
bio
much.
that I want to use on my website.
Okay, I will send it to you. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us.
How do you say thank you in Greek?
Ευχαριστώ.
Ευχαριστώ.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ.